Hello, everybody, and a warm welcome to this Q&A. My name is Tevin Stakston, and I am the Nordic distributor for the great film Old Henry. I am delighted to be joined by the film's writer and director, Potsy Ponciroli, and Henry himself, Tim Blake Nelson. So, the Western is a genre that has been popular ever since the birth of cinema. And what do you, Potsy, think still continues to fascinate audiences about this genre?
I think the Western, it just, I guess it exemplifies all of the idea that, heading west to make a new life and the unknown and what's out there. And, that was a big piece of American tradition was, and even, I guess, tradition in general, people coming over from Europe to the Americas, and then as they hit the Americas, it's settling west. So it's always exploring and looking for new, and I think that knowing there's a new life out on the horizon is always it's that untapped, unknown, dangerous world that I think people get excited about exploring, and all the cool stories that come with it.
To me personally, I have always been fascinated by this type of history of the Old West. And when I watched the film, I started to pick up some clues regarding Henry's real identity. However, I was pleasantly surprised when it turns out that it's actually Billy the Kid. And given how this is a historical figure, did this change the way you approach the role in any way, Tim?
Certainly, when one is playing a historical figure, there's a new responsibility for accuracy and for deciding what details need to accrue inside of the depiction. But at the same time, I was working in this genre film, because it is a Western, that Potsy wrote with a certain vocabulary that's larger than life. And because it's a father and son story, there's almost a fabular aspect to it as well. And so it was a question of balancing being accurate to the historical figure with working inside of the vocabulary, which to me, again, was larger than life, of a genre film that Potsy was making. And so you triangulate that with the third point, which is making it personal to you. And that really became the balance in trying to make the character work. Ultimately, a performer is responsible first and foremost to his or her director. And so it was really the challenge of finding a truthful character that was going to fit within Potsy's vision.
Quickly following up on that, was it always going to be Billy the Kid, or did you have any other legendary outlaws in mind when writing the script, Potsy?
It actually started as a script called Old Dan,
Okay.
not about Billy the Kid, and so it was same story, just an old man that lived on a farm, not old Tim, but an aging man that lived on a farm. But so as we got further down the road with our company and the Shot Factory, they said it'd be nice to have a historical figure somewhere in there. And to me, that was an easy ad, because Billy the Kid was by far my favorite, gunslinger growing up. And the lore of Pat Garrett possibly letting him go and he hides out in Mexico, that was something that really stuck with me as a kid. And when we, when this came up, it was an easy switch from Old Dan to Old Henry McCarty. So yeah, he was the only one from the beginning. So after Old Dan.
After Old Dan, yeah. And
yeah.
I mean, Tim, this is such a great performance, and this is a character that needs to have a sense of control or around both weapons and tools in his work as a farmer. What kind of preparation did you have to do before the shooting started of the film?
A lot of preparation, a lot of detailed preparation, and thankfully Potsy and his producers gave me the space to be able to do that. I had a lot of time to prepare for this role, and I really divided it up into two sections. The first 2/3 of it, so I'd say about 8 to 9 months, were really about the way the character moved and spoke, but also the research and working on the script alongside Potsy and us sort of developing together who this guy was going to be. But then the last several months were, I moved more into the physical preparation. And that really got heavily involved in the last 3 weeks. I moved down to Tennessee several weeks before starting to shoot the film and was working on this stuff every day, whether it was the gun work or the work with the horse, butchering,
swinging a pickaxe.
Swinging a pickaxe.
Yep.
So it was great, and you know, I've started to work in a new way in which most of my work is done in preparing for a role rather than in the actual shooting of it. And I was very lucky with this one to have a director and producers who supported that. So I got to do a tremendous amount of prep. And therefore, when we were shooting the movie, I didn't have to worry about any of that stuff. It all felt like second nature.
And I think it's interesting that you mentioned the way the character speaks, because I think the script has I almost got the feel of the novel True Grit by Charles Portis, that the characters are very well spoken. Could you talk about some influences when writing the script, Potsy?
Yeah, I think, I mean, a lot of that came about once Tim signed on. Tim and I, you know, once Tim read the script, we had a Zoom call and we hit it off. And one of the questions he asked was, could I get in there and dig out this character and work on it with you? And I said, of course. So we spent weeks and weeks, you know, a couple hours a day just pouring through it and reading old stories and watching old movies. And a lot of that dialogue really came out from, you know, we stole some things from the Pat Garrett book on Billy the Kid, and we stole, just some things that made it feel more authentic and true. And Tim was a huge piece of that. I mean, it really was a collaborative building of this character and this dialogue and this, you know, the way that he spoke. And it was, you know, like Tim said, that was probably my favorite part of the whole process, was just the beginning. And, like, you know, before we actually got to shoot, just kind of really honing it in and making it feel authentic and like just a really good story.
And I think that the Western genre itself, it comes with certain tropes and expectations. And I think this film has been described both as a micro Western or a new Western. So this is a question for the both of you. What was a genre-specific trope or cliche that you did not want to feature in the film?
You want to go first, Tim, or you want
to? That's an interesting question. There was very little, you know, when I got the script, there were aspects of it that I thought that Potsy was going to be able to tell without words. And so a lot of my dialogue ended up getting cut back, which we agreed was going to be for the best. And we always, as we worked on stuff together, with Potsy having the last word in every respect, but we always said, if you can achieve, Potsy, the scene without words, it's best, so that the only words that Henry ever speaks are essential for the forward movement of the narrative. And so I would say that we wanted to embrace the notion of a laconic character and not have him speak too much in cliche ways by way of reflecting his relationship with his son.
Yeah, I think too, some of the you know, there's a lot of Western tropes that are, it just, there's things that happen in Western movies that happen in a lot of them. And I think for good reason, because, it's hard to tell these stories without hitting some of these moments. So there, I know there's one part where Tim and I were rehearsing his gunfight on the porch and the moves and how he would fire and then get back in the house. And it wasn't scripted that he dove through the window. But we were up there on a Saturday with our stunt coordinator Rocky, and I remember Tim and I looking at the window, and he was like, "We should dive through the window." And I was like, "Yeah, we should dive through the window." He's like, "You think?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I think we should dive through the window." And so it turned into, is that too much of a Western trope? But no, because it's awesome, and why not? If it fits and it's not hokey, and we can pull it off, then do it, because that's big and action and fun. And so I think there's a lot of those things that I think we call them homage more than trope.
What I really loved about Potsy's script when I got it was that I was clearly going to be in the hands of a writer-director who was unafraid of the genre aspects of his movie, and also wasn't going to give in to a lot of the demands that are made on movies right now, in terms of what the violence is like, revising the history for to avoid offending people. Potsy wanted to make a meat and potatoes, unapologetic, true Western. And I was really excited by that because in a weird way, it showed a temerity on his part, and I just wanted to be. I wanted in, and so this is all to say that I actually love how this film embraces the tropes.
I think it really does that, but at the same time, you have the thing. Yeah, like the throwing yourself through a window, or I think the fact that it's quite brutal at times, which is like, I think that Western films have a tendency to sometimes gloss over violence, at least older Westerns. It's kind of glamorized in a way. And I think it's refreshing to see upfront in that kind of way.
Well, you're dealing with a filmmaker in Potsy who wasn't afraid of any of that. It's great.
I know we did, we referenced, there was a few films we referenced, Tim and I, where we were talking about, as this thing was getting rolling, and he was asking about the violence, and we both watched Bone Tomahawk, and I think we both agreed that was too far.
Yeah.
There is a limit to where we want to go with this. So as far as the brutality, but
yeah, and I mean, as I understand this, the final climactic sequence of the film was shot in around 3 hours, since you have a limited amount of daylight left. And could you tell us a bit more about the sequence, both from a production standpoint, but also inspiration and how it came to be?
Yeah, I mean, the gunfight at the end, that was something that I always wanted it to be very thought out and very just very slow, not just a bunch of bullets flying, but really put the emphasis on what it is to pull one trigger and one bullet, and what that does, and really keeping up with the bullet count and kind of slowing down the fight. And one film that we reference a lot was Open Range, because I think that really gave you some weight to those guns and let you feel the danger with each shot. But yeah, we ran out of, we had a 21-day shoot on this movie, and it was in winter, so our daylight hours were, our daylight window was very small. So this was our last day of shooting, and we had to get this. So I think we had 2 more scenes after this to shoot, and so we were really pushing through that wood scene. But luckily there's literally no other edit possible in the wood scene, so you couldn't edit it another way. Everything we shot is in the film.
I've worked with some of the greatest directors on the planet. I've been very, very lucky. and I won't name drop them, but I've worked with amazing directors. But I always say that on every movie, one learns something. And on every movie, if a good director is going to do something beautifully. And Potsy is a wonderful director, and I can't wait to work with him again. His greatest moment to me on this movie was the way that he directed that gunfight in 3 hours. He really blew me away. He knew exactly what he wanted. He filmed it only in pieces. We never shot a master shot. And pretty much every shot he filmed is almost entirely in the movie. How he pulled this gunfight off in 3 hours, I still don't know. But I do know he had such kind authority in the way that he put Stephen Dorff and me through our paces in this scene, that I was just doing whatever he wanted and I was not asking questions. And the results speak for themselves. I think he did a beautiful job conceiving of this scene and directing it and editing it. I think it's marvelous and one of the better gunfights you'll ever see in a Western.
I appreciate that, Tim. Very nice. Thank you.
And as a final note, you briefly touched upon it. I think both me and the audience are curious to hear about what maybe might be your next project, Potsy. If you have something lined up that you can talk about.
I have 2 films that I didn't write, but I'm attached to. We're basically trying to start casting on. So they're not Westerns. They'll be more in the dark comedy action area. But I'm excited as we kind of get into them. I don't know which one's gonna go first yet. So we're just in casting phase. And then also working with Tim on one that his son and he wrote. I'll let Tim talk about that, which I'm really excited about.
Okay, wow.
Yeah, we're not announcing it yet, but we're
No.
Potsy's company and I. Potsy's company is going to produce this movie with me that my son and I are making. But more on that to come.
Yeah, true. And great to hear that you two found each other. I think you can really tell in the final product. It's a great film, and I hope that it will have a great success when it's being released in Sweden next spring. And
Great.
I thank you all for joining me today. For this
It's been our pleasure.
Yeah, thank you so much. Good to meet you.
Yeah, good to meet you too.
We'll see you.
See ya.
Bye-bye.